Welcome, everybody. I'm John Lazaz. This is the Elite Team Community Twitch channel, and this is going to be our first audio masterclass. Today, the idea, or should I say the goal of today's masterclass, is to show you my process, and hopefully by the end of it, you guys will walk away feeling a lot more comfortable setting up the microphone the way you want to, and to get the sound that you want. I know it's really easy to go out there and just like copy someone's settings and you kind of find out that it doesn't really sound as expected. That's because everyone's in sort of a different audio situation. I'm going to be demonstrating a lot of that today. So to kind of give you a breakdown of like what we're going to be doing and how I'm going to be going over this, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be setting up a microphone from scratch on this PC right here in front of me. I'm on a 2 PC setup, so it should be a lot easier to show you guys this while I'm doing it. So, you know, I've got this right here. This is an MXL 770. I'm going to be setting this thing up. Actually, Kaiser has one of these as well. He actually just got it, and he actually really loves it. And I'm going to have, like, set up on a separate stand. You're still going to hear me through this microphone while I'm setting it up. Squaber's daddy, welcome, dude. Welcome. And I apologize if you see me talking to chat, but I just want to let you guys know that while I'm doing the masterclass, I might not be responding to chat too often because I want to try to get through this in about an hour. And then I'm going to have a Q&A session at the end where you guys can ask all your questions. During the presentation, I am going to ask you from time to time if you have any questions, just to make sure that you guys understand what's going on. So keep an eye out for those opportunities if you have any questions when something arises. However, you can always hold on to your questions till the Q&A. So I'm just kind of peeking at my notes here. So for the method, like how am I going to be doing this exactly? So one of the main things I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using what's called a digital audio workstation to kind of check all of my audio on the fly. And one of the reasons why I do this has to do with the fact that the traditional way that you would probably do it on OBS would involve you either going live and then like listening to audio and have it be really jarring. So it's playing back in your ear, like not in real time. So that can be really annoying. Or you're going to be sitting there recording over and over again, listening back to your recordings, right? Whenever you're recording locally on OBS, and then you're gonna have to listen back to it, make changes, go back, record it, listen to it again. It's just not a quick process at all. It takes a long time. So the reason why I'm choosing a DAW is because you get real-time feedback. And you could just basically take all of the settings, which by the way, we're gonna be using ReaPlugs, which are a third-party plugin that you could download and use in OBS. They work in OBS, Streamlabs OBS, but personally, I prefer to use OBS Studio because the third-party support's a lot better. You run into a situation with Streamlabs where your plugins will not save their settings, and you'll have to set them up every single time you go live, and that's annoying. Nobody wants to do that. So I will, in the description, we'll leave links to ReaPlugs. I'm going to be using Reaper, the DAW, which is a digital audio workstation that you can download and try for free indefinitely. So while I'm not saying that you shouldn't pay for this, if you wanted to keep using it, the trial version, you could just keep using it. However, just so you know, it's made by the guys who created what's called Winamp. And if you guys don't know the Winamp music player, it was sold, and those guys took that money and invested it into a digital audio workstation that's affordable and has all the same functionality and support as something like Pro Tools, which is an industry standard digital audio workstation. So, and when I say cheap, I mean Pro Tools normally costs around like $800 if you were to buy it straight up, and Reaper costs about $60. So for something that is as powerful as it is, costing only $60, I think that's a pretty good deal. So if you guys are looking, yeah, you remember Winamp. So you guys understand, like, these guys just wanted to do a solid for the audio community, and they absolutely delivered on it. So I'm going to be using that today. 90s kids remember, indeed. So now I've kind of lumped in just about everything into one section more than I expected. So why don't we just head over to my desktop. So right here, you're looking at Reaper right now, and you can see that I've already got a waveform in here. The first thing I need to do, on the Elite YouTube channel, this was something that I asked anyone that wanted to participate today to take some time to watch. If you didn't watch it, it's no big deal. We'll go over it briefly, but I have a video talking about waveforms, and my method involves analyzing a waveform as a reference, because not everyone's going to be in a situation where you have you know, good audio, accurate audio headsets, or you have really good studio monitors. So you might end up getting a misrepresentation of what people are actually going to be hearing on your stream. So I use a waveform to help me with that. And that's why I use a DAW. Now, Reaper, you can download on the website if you want to. Like, you can literally download it right now and try it today. It requires a little bit of setup. I'm not going to go over how to set up Reaper or anything like that today. That's a totally different topic. I'll make a separate video if you guys want me to. But what we're going to do instead is I'm just going to basically set up this mic from scratch in here. We're also going to set it up in OBS Studio. I have a fresh canvas here to work with. You won't see any preview because it's really not necessary for the tutorial. And I'm going to show you guys the whole entire process. So, briefly, when we talk about waveforms, what exactly are we looking at here? This is a waveform right here. And if I play it back, I can just kind of click any spot. You notice there's like a little playhead here, a green playhead. I can kind of choose like where on the timeline I want to hit play from. Now, this is kind of the beauty of what's called non-linear editing. Basically, Disney Dad, welcome to the stream, my dude. A digital audio workstation is what's called a non-linear editor. So instead of like the whole process being from start to finish, it is something where you can kind of like pick a point at any point and kind of work on it and edit it. A video editor is a form of a non-linear editor as well. And it just makes things a lot more convenient to manage audio as opposed to like sitting there having to constantly play back things over and over again. So like I can pick any point here on this waveform and play it. So if we look over at this side right here, you're going to be hearing a lot of repetitive audio. And just let me know, guys, were you able to hear that okay? Just give me some feedback. Just so that way I know. I'll turn it up a little bit if I need to. But this is just to kind of show you, like, first off, what kind of levels I'm running whenever I'm setting up my microphone. It's pretty quiet, right? When we get to talking about gain staging, you didn't hear it? Okay, I think I know why. I know why. Let's try that again.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here.
That should be good. How was that? Give me a thumbs up or whatever. You know, it seems good, man. You know, whatever. Yep. All right, cool. I hear it now. Beautiful. Awesome. Okay, so this is just something I recorded with my SM7B, and the reason for that was because I wanted a reference, okay? So this microphone right here, one of the core things you need to understand about microphones is that they're not built the same. They're all totally different. They all sound different, right? The reason why you buy a microphone is because you want to make yourself sound better, or you want to make yourself sound a certain way. That's really how you should look at it. You buy a microphone to get a certain sound, okay? These are two totally different microphones. This is what's considered a dynamic microphone, and this is a condenser microphone. They operate differently, and they also have sort of different advantages to each other, right? Not everyone's gonna want to use the same microphone in every situation, and we'll go over that later. You guys can ask me about it in the Q&A if you want. But the short of it is that like a dynamic microphone is basically less sensitive than a condenser microphone is. However, you might get a different results using a dynamic microphone as opposed to a condenser microphone. Condenser microphones tend to be better at picking up higher frequencies. They're a lot more sensitive. They tend to pick up room reflections more. And dynamic microphones kind of good for like filtering out like it's kind of good for like you know, increasing the difference between your signal and noise ratio, which is something we'll get into a little later because it is pretty important and relevant to what we're talking about today. Now we're going to kind of get started here. So with the waveforms, what you're looking at here is you're looking at these sort of like squiggly lines, right? They kind of go up and down. If we zoom way in on it.
What's going on?
You can see that these lines kind of go up and down, and there's like a center line here, right? So all this is really telling you is high and low pressure waves. That's just the way that sound travels. It kind of pulsates in and out like this. It makes sound sort of compress and uncompress, you know, like kind of they get closer together, air molecules, and then they separate from each other, and they kind of repeat this pattern over and over again. And all this is doing is telling you that process of the waveform getting picked up. So as it goes up, it's higher pressure. As it goes down, it's low pressure. Now, the higher you see these peaks in either direction indicates more volume, or what's called sound pressure levels. Okay, so sound pressure levels is what's generated in real life. Okay, so me talking into this mic, I am generating sound pressure levels. Now the microphone picks that up, and what that microphone picks up is measured in decibels. Okay, so if you've never heard the term decibels, that's basically a measurement that tells you perceived volume. Okay, so most people think of it as volume. But it's basically the fundamental volume measurement when we're talking about volume and audio. Okay, it's and when you're seeing this play back, if you look in the lower left-hand corner, you will see that this meter down in the lower left-hand corner bounces up and down. You'll actually see it right next to the track here on the left-hand side.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here.
Now, what's kind of beautiful about that is that, believe it or not, OBS has the same thing. So within OBS, you'll see that the meter, they have these little decibel meters, and they tell you how loud the audio is. If I just plug in my microphone really quick into my audio interface, you should start to see audio, so give me just a second. My mixer allows me to do this. Now you see I'm talking into OBS right here on my second computer, and you see that meter's bouncing up and down as I'm talking. So when you're seeing this meter bouncing up and down, what it's telling you is you can see that it sort of hits a part right down where my line is. It's kind of somewhere around this 20 marker. If you use OBS Studio, they have these little numbers right here next to the meter, which tells you what decibel level you're coming in at. And that almost directly correlates to what you see here in the waveforms. You can kind of look here, you see that this sort of correlates pretty directly with what sort of measurements we have. The peaks sort of reach that same amount as what you would see in here. So if you're looking at this is kind of telling you that you're hovering right around minus 20 decibels. And this is kind of a good level that you would want anyway for your microphone, because after we apply all the plugins and stuff, this is going to be so much louder afterwards. Now, take a look here as we play this back. You've got a large varying dynamic range here. Dynamic range kind of inferring, the volume differences in the waveform or how you're talking. So when I talk kind of quiet, it gets like, you see that the meter doesn't really bounce as much. It kind of gets really low, kind of sitting around minus 40. And when I get really loud, it gets up to around minus 15. Okay, so you get the idea, right? This is just kind of telling you, basically, the lower that number is, the louder the source is, right? So if you're sitting at like minus 5, that's a lot louder than like minus 20, okay? You get the idea. Now, that's what this waveform is showing you. As you see that those peaks are getting higher, that's just telling you that it's louder than the rest of the source. So if I just play this back for you, you can listen for yourself.
How's it going, everyone? John Lazaz here. Just doing a little bit of a test recording here, just kind of talk at different dynamics and kind of see how the mic sounds when I move my head around, get really close to it, get even closer to it, and maybe even get pretty loud. So as I played all that, you can kind of see how much the volume changed as the playhead was moving. That's why I'm going to be yep, it is very quiet. It should be quiet. That's kind of the idea. I'll fix it in post if it's that quiet, but this is just to illustrate the kind of signal that I'm actually sending into OBS. It's really quiet, right? And there's a reason for that. When we get to talking about gain staging, it'll all make sense. Now, we've kind of gotten the waveform stuff. I don't want to go too deep into it, but the basic fundamental idea you need to understand is that the bigger these peaks are, the louder the source is. And the smaller the peaks are, the quieter it is, okay? We've got that established. So I was hoping to get the info earlier. It's all good. It's all good, man. So we'll try to get it uploaded to YouTube as quick as we can. So now that we got the sort of waveform stuff out of the way, we understand that the waveforms kind of correlate with what you see on this meter here on OBS, right? This is just what OBS provides you with to help check your audio levels on the fly without having to go and listen back over and over again. It gives you a visual representation of it. Just makes it a lot easier to get things set up. Now that we kind of got that out of the way, why don't we get to the part where we're setting up the microphone? So, I'm using an XLR setup. So I'm currently using what's called a Focusrite Scarlett 2i4. It's a first generation interface. Most people who want to get an XLR setup, if you want to kind of get into an XLR setup and not have to buy a crazy mixer like this thing over here, you probably don't really need anything that crazy anyway. I'm a musician, so like I have a good reason for having something like this. But for most of you, you're probably only going to really need an audio interface, and it's good enough to plug in maybe 1 or 2 microphones, right? And I'm gonna kind of get this microphone plugged in. Got an XLR cable right over here. This microphone is obviously sitting on a stand right now, and I have it on a stand for a reason because we're gonna set it up 2 different ways. We're gonna be setting it up on the stand, getting it close to us, and I'm also gonna show you for those who are in a situation where you have the microphone a little further away and how the setup process is gonna be different for you if you do that. So what I want to do is I want to get started by using the stand first, so the bigger stand, and I'm going to show you the whole process. So what I'm doing right now is I've got this XLR cable. I'm just going to go ahead and, unravel it.
You're really just going to watch me set this up from scratch. I'm going to unravel the cable. I'm going to plug in the mic and everything. And one of the main things you're probably going to want to do when you're plugging in something is you're going to want to turn the gain all the way down. Just turn the gain all the way down on the interface. For those who don't know, if you have like a Blue Yeti, for example, you probably noticed that there's a gain knob on it. Gain is like the most important thing you need to set on a microphone. So, I apologize. Yes, plug it in for me, John. Oh, baby. I'll plug it in. I'll be remorseless. I failed at wrapping this cable, and that's why I'm untangling it right now. He said knob. Yes. So, now I'm about to plug it in, but there's another thing I also have to notice. Because we're plugging in a condenser microphone, I had to make sure phantom power was turned on. So condenser microphones typically require phantom power. If you use a cloud lifter for something like a Shure SM7B, that also requires phantom power, but the SM7B itself does not require it. It has to do with the capsule that's inside of the microphone. It requires electricity, and all phantom power does is that it delivers electricity to whatever it's plugged into through the interface. It's just providing power to it. That's all phantom power is. There's no like audio advantage to it. It's just something that's necessary for certain pieces of equipment. All right, just plug that in. Just gonna go ahead and get this over here. Next thing I'm probably gonna want to do is I want to remove this from the stand for now. Take the microphone out of the shock mount. Get the shock mount on there first. Just so you guys can see, I'm actually just like removing some of the things here. I got to remove this pop filter. We're going to use the pop filter though, because I'm gonna show you guys when you would want to use a pop filter. But I'm also going to show you some ways that you can kind of avoid having to use one. There are some tricks that you can employ to kind of make it so that you don't have to go out and spend the extra money on a pop filter. However, I also would recommend that you get one anyway, just for situations. You never know how your setup's gonna require it. So, all right, we've got the shock mount on the stand now. I'm using what's called a boom microphone stand, and that's because this thing kind of goes off to the side like this, and it kind of extends out. You know, it's called a boom arm. This is the broadcasting arm. That's just one thing you could call it, but it's also technically a boom arm as well. I'm just kind of adjusting it for angle and stuff like that. That should be all right. We're going to talk about mic positioning once I get this plugged in. So, okay, so really important thing. I want to point something out on this microphone. So, condenser microphones like this, you can see this designed a certain way. Now, if I were to shine a light into this thing, you'll see that there's a capsule, okay? All microphones have a capsule pointed in a specific direction, all right? I am in a totally serious mood today. I can tell. So, if you look inside here, you can see that there's a capsule inside the microphone, right? I hope you can see it. Can you guys see that okay? It's like a circular thing inside of the microphone. I'm trying my best to kind of point at it, you know what I mean? It's easier to see through here, but inside of that is a capsule that picks up the audio. And you can see that it's like a circle that's kind of pointed towards like the front. How many hours did you invest into investigating audio? This hobby turns to be semi-pro. We see this is yes, well, cardioid, technically, yes. I think that's what you meant, cardioid, right? This is a cardioid microphone. Omnidirectional, you know, you would have audio getting picked up in every direction. In this case, it's a cardioid microphone, and that's actually indicated on the front. If you take a look at this microphone, you can see that there's like a little symbol right up here. Let's see if you guys can get that. Autofocus is beautiful on this thing. That's actually right at the very top, right up there. Maybe you can see it, maybe you can't. Do my best, but that's indicating the front of the microphone. A lot of microphones usually have that. Not all of them do, but if you're kind of lost as to where the front of the microphone is, most of the time it'll have that symbol, that cardioid symbol on the front of it. or it'll have the logo in the front, and a lot of times that's where the front of the microphone's located. That's something you need to factor in when you're setting up your microphone, is pointing the front of the microphone towards you. Otherwise, it's not going to pick up the audio quite as well. You can see, when I turn my head away from this microphone right here, it gets significantly quieter, right? You can't really hear me as well. When I'm talking right into it, you can hear me very well. So this is one of the first fundamental things you need to understand when it comes to mic positioning, is that if you do not have the microphone pointed towards you, yes, you know what I mean. But if you don't have the microphone pointed towards you, it's not going to pick you up as well. You know, you don't want to be picking up the walls around you. You want to be picking up your voice. So point the microphone towards you. You know, this might sound like duh, but you will not believe how many people get this wrong, especially in live streaming. So many people get it wrong. You know how many people I see that like point their Blue Yetis like towards their desk, thinking that, you know, they talk into like the top of the microphone, thinking that that's where they need to talk into. So many people do that, and it's almost like embarrassing that you can just tell that they didn't like even read the instruction manual. Like they tell you in the instruction manual how to set it up. But yes. Anyway, it's like, oh my gosh, it really is. It really is. So I'm just going to kind of get this cable plugged in now. I'm going to be really crude about it. Really crude. All right. Normally I would like wrap the cable around and make it all neat and stuff, but it's not important for today. We're going to be moving it around a bunch. So right now I've got the microphone pointed towards me, right? Kind of angle it a little bit. Now, here is the next part. So this is going to be a little weird because I have to use two microphones at once so you guys can hear me while I do this, but I'm also going to be showing you guys how to gain stage, okay? Now, you can do this two ways. I'm going to show you how to do it in OBS first, how you can gain stage in an OBS. And then I'm going to show you how to use the DAW to gain stage. So, if we go into OBS, it's pretty easy to do. Right now, it seems to be, that's crazy. It's actually picking me up. That's wild. That's even picking me up right now, because right now I've got no gain going into it. So, this interface is odd. That's what I'm saying. My mic has a condom. Well, I guess the equivalent to that would be a pop filter. Instruction manuals are overrated. They kind of are, but they're very useful, especially if you're in the audio industry. So right now what I'm doing is I'm just checking to see why it's picking up audio. I also don't want to overthink it. So right now it's fine. If I start turning it up, so right now I'm talking into the microphone, just like this, you know, and you can see that it's still fairly low. My goal is to kind of get it sitting at around like -20 or -15. So while I'm talking into it, I'm going to be adjusting the microphone. Testing 1 2, testing 1 2, test 1 2, check, microphone check. There we go. So I've got the microphone kind of set about halfway. I got the gain knob set about halfway right now, and it's a windsock. That's another term for it. Some people call it a windsock or a windscreen. Technically, this is one right here. This microphone comes with actually two of them, and you can choose between them. There's like a much thicker one that you can put on this microphone. This is a Shure SM7B, and this is kind of like the main one by default that is put on it. You can actually remove it pretty easily by just like squeezing the ring, and then there you go. Now you can just remove it. It's really easy. A microphone condom. Yeah, we can call it a microphone condom. Why not? Now, at this point, we've gain staged the microphone and it's ready to go in OBS. If you wanted to just do nothing to your audio whatsoever and just get the microphone set up, I have showed you everything that I need to show you. Literally, the process is done. Okay? Maybe you can see that the volume right here. Oh, sorry. Let's go back really quick. Right now, I've got my audio, my volume set to 0. So this is all the way up. That's actually where you want to start. What I forgot to do is that you go to Advanced Properties, and you want to make sure that mono's unchecked, okay? You're going to want to turn on mono afterwards, but for now, when you're setting it up, you're going to want to turn it off. And that's just because of the way that this interface is set up. This interface is normally what's a stereo input interface in OBS. It only picks up the stereo signal. So there are two microphone tracks on it, and the first microphone track is a left, the right microphone track is a right, okay? So you can see that right now on this meter that it's only coming in on the right side. If I were to turn it back on to mono, it'll go back on both sides. So now that I'm talking into it, you can see that both of these meters, you can see that meter split down the middle. that's telling you the stereo signal, and it's picking it up right now as a mono signal. So when it's in mono, it's using both sides equally, okay? Stereo, it would separate it into both left and right in your ears, right? That's just the way this interface is. When you're in OBS and you're setting up your audio and you have an interface like this, okay? You want to make sure you have mono turned off. Otherwise, you're not going to get an accurate representation of levels. Right now, you can see that when I'm talking into it, it's at -10, which is probably a little hotter than we really want it. So when I turn on mono, it's a lot quieter. It's down at like -15. So that's not really telling you what your actual volume levels are. So what you're going to want to do is when you're gain staging and setting things properly, make sure that you have that unchecked while you do it. So I'm just going to turn it down just a little bit. There we go. I think right about there is pretty good. I could always turn on the pad too. That's something, there's something called a pad, and what it does is that it kind of like reduces the volume of your input signal going into the interface, so that way you can, that way it's just safer and better on the microphone, because you can damage a condenser microphone if you talk too loudly into it. The capsules are very sensitive, so you don't, if you want to just avoid that, just turn on a pad. A lot of times that helps with that. In this case, I'm actually pretty happy with those levels, right about -15. Maybe I'll just turn it up a nudge. So maybe, yeah, right about there. Nah, it's a little too hot. With preamps, they tend to be really sensitive. Like, you turn the knob just a little bit, and it can do a lot. So, really tiny adjustments. See, now it's getting I think that's a good spot right there. We'll go with that. So now I'll just turn this back on. Okay. So that's the whole entire setup process for gain staging in OBS. Now, we're going to be doing this in a DAW, okay? We've got a reference track right here, and the reason why we're going to use a reference track is so that we can listen side to side in real time to see if the changes that we're making are positive or negative. That's the whole idea. It's all about context when you're setting up your microphone. You have a reference of some sort that you put into the project, and you listen back to your audio, and you essentially use the reference to kind of try to match it, right? So if you hear a streamer with audio that you really like, and you're able to obtain that audio from like a stream or whatever, you can actually just be listening to that audio while you're setting up your microphone in a DAW, and then you can try to match that as closely as you possibly can. You're never going to get it absolutely perfect because you are not in the same situation with the same equipment in the same room. Like, you're not the same voice. You know what I mean? There's too many factors, way too many factors, like to determine whether or not you're actually going to get that sound. So, don't use a reference track with the expectation that you're going to get the sound exactly the same, but you can get it really close. So that should be your goal. Try to get it really close and use it as like a reference, a starting point. Okay. So I'm going to insert a new track, and then what we're going to do is I'm going to hit record here, and I'm going to just choose my input. So I'm going to just go ahead. Right now, you see that the microphone that I'm talking into right here is currently being picked up in the DAW. So yeah, my gain is very sensitive. Do you use a Blue Yeti, Creepy? I can't remember what microphone you use. I'm pretty sure it is a Blue Yeti, right? Yes. Okay. So I want to show you one quick thing. This is one quick thing. So with the Blue Yeti, in the Blue Yeti setup video that I made for the Elite channel, it kind of demonstrates this. Some of you might be in a situation where you don't have a gain knob, and you might have to actually adjust the gain of your microphone within Windows. So in order to like do that, if we right-click down on the speaker icon down here, if you have the latest version of Windows, it'll work this way. I'll show you another way how to get here, but you'll click the Sounds tab, and it'll bring up this little sound window, right? Another way you can get there is you click the Notification tab. You go to all settings, right? System, Sound, and then you go to the Sound Control panel. It brings you to the same window. So there's a couple of different ways you can get there, but the easiest way to get there is you right-click the speaker icon, click Sound, and then there you go. It's right there. Drops mic. His mic is better than his arm. Yes. His aim. Yes, I agree. So, right now, let's say this is my audio interface right here. The analog 1+2, that is the microphone technically that I'm using right now, okay? So if you right-click on whatever your microphone is in that listing under the recording tab, you go to Properties, then you go to the Levels tab. This is where you can kind of set everything. Now, for my audio interface, I want it at 100, okay? It's just because all the audio is being handled on the preamp side of things, okay? There's a preamp built into this audio interface, so that's boosting the signal already going in. If you're in a situation where you don't have a preamp and you don't have any way to adjust the analog volume going into your computer, which for the Blue Yeti will be that gain knob on the back, you'll have to adjust this. Now, the funny thing about the Blue Yeti is that it kind of works as a line in. So it's taking in the line in signal at the same time. So you might have to adjust this lower or higher depending on what kind of results you're getting. So if you turn up the gain knob and like you have to barely turn it up, like you want to use more of the preamp side. So why don't you just turn this down, maybe like minus, set it to 50, set it to about 30 and play around with this. And then you can turn up the gain on your microphone and you should get a more full sound, I think it sounds better that way. So maybe it doesn't sound any different. I'll probably do a test on that someday if I can get my hands on a Blue Yeti again. And we'll see for sure if that's the case. So this is one of the first steps I would suggest, honestly, is just make sure that everything here is good to go. Make sure that if you're using an audio interface that this is set to 100, or if you're using a Blue Yeti, like check to make sure that this isn't set to 100. Just play around with this level while you're gain staging, and then adjust your gain knob afterwards. And that way you can kind of use more of the preamp that's built into the Blue Yeti to kind of get, I would say, a more appropriate and intended sound from the microphone. Okay, so we got that out of the way. This is just one of those basic things. Now that we have that out of the way, why don't we go ahead and get started? I'm just going to mute this track at the top here, and I'm going to just do a quick recording of the microphone to kind of see where we're sitting at right now. So if I just kind of like go over here, what I like to do is I like to make sure I try to match my sources too. So if we listen back to this real quick.
How's it going, everyone? John Azaz here. Just doing a little bit of a test recording here.
I'm just going to talk. So we'll just do that. Mute that. And hit record. What's going on, everyone? John Azaz here. Just doing another audio tutorial. We're going to be doing a sound check to see how this microphone sounds versus everything else. It looks like the levels are a little bit low, so what I think I might do is I might adjust the gain just a little bit while I'm talking into it. And we'll kind of check the levels as we're going. So as you can see, right now I've got audio monitoring on. Let's turn that off. You might hear a little bit of an echo. I apologize for that. And we can kind of see the levels seem a little more tame. This actually seems about right to me. So we're going to kind of go with this. So while I was recording that in the middle of it, I was adjusting the volume. So you might hear that at some point. Why don't we go ahead and listen back to what we just recorded?
What's going on, everyone? John Azaz here. Just doing another audio tutorial. We're going to be doing a sound check to see how this microphone sounds versus everything else. It looks like the levels are a little bit low.
So many things are important. As I get lost in, let's see. I think for me, audio is the only world I don't get lost in. It's so much. So many things that are important, and not just settings, it's also environment. Yeah, environment's probably the biggest thing, and I'm going to be demonstrating that to you guys in just a moment, because that's probably going to be the most influential thing when it comes to your mic sound, is the environment that you're sitting in. Now, we just take a listen back to this one more time.
What's going on, everyone? John Azaz here. Just doing.
Now, I want to show you one thing really quick. So I'm going to try to line these two up as closely as I can, just like this. You can see that right now. The playhead's kind of similar. Now, I want you guys to hear the difference between this microphone and this microphone. So I'm going to just shut up, and we're going to switch between the two.
What's going on, everyone? John Azaz here. Just doing a
little bit of a test recording here. Just kind of talk at different dynamics
versus everything else. It looks like the levels are a little bit low. So what I think I might do is I might adjust the gain just a little bit while I'm talking into it.
So that sounds wildly different, right? Really different. These two microphones sound completely different from each other. Let's go back and let's listen one more time.
What's going on, everyone? John Azaz here. Just doing another audio tutorial. We're going to be
recording here. Just kind of talk at different dynamics and
a little bit low. So what I think I might do is I might adjust the gain just
my head around, get really close to it.
And we'll kind of check the levels as we're going. So as you can see, right
now, this is sort of the louder portion, kind of where we set our gain. We're going to just listen back one more time, because you have to have this sort of critical listening while you're setting it up. We'll set it back to around here.
And we'll kind of check the levels as we're going. So as you can see, right now I've got audio monitoring on. Let's turn that off. You might hear a little bit of an echo. I apologize.
Do you hear how drastically my audio kind of changes volume? Like, you see how it kind of just gets quiet? That's happening when I'm turning away from the microphone. All right, so like when I'm not talking into the microphone, that's how much the sound changes. Like,
and we'll kind of check the levels as we're going. So as you can see,
so what if you remember how I was recording, I was kind of talking into the microphone and then I was turning away, right?
And we'll kind of check the levels as we're going. So as you can see, right now I've got audio monitoring on.
I'm just kind of demonstrating with my head.
A little bit of an echo. I apologize for that. And we can kind of see the levels seem a little more tame.
right? So I'm just kind of to help illustrate the importance of mic positioning. Okay, like not talking into your mic is one of the biggest ways that you can basically ruin what's called your signal to noise ratio. We'll talk about that a little bit when we start moving the mic around, because when we set up like the noise suppression, that's going to be a big thing.
And we'll kind of check the levels as we're going. So as you can see, right now I've got audio monitoring on. Let's turn that off.
But you guys hear the difference. So my goal is to try to like set everything up to try to get this thing to sound basically as close to this SM7B as I can, right? As it's set up. And we're going to try to like get this microphone set up in a way where it sounds really good, or at least how I think it sounds really good. So we've got a little bit of a test right here. This is kind of a good start. And now what we can do is we can start moving on to cleaning up the track, okay? So we're going to actually do one more recording with this, and I'm going to kind of show you how I go about getting everything set up, right? So ReaPlugs. This is something that you can download from Reaper. These are the plugins that they come native with Reaper itself. But if you want to use them in OBS, you have to download them. So we'll keep a link in the description so you guys can download them. But if I were to go to just Google and just search ReaPlugs, and then you can just click here, and you can just download them. I highly recommend most of you have a 64-bit system, so you can download the 64-bit version. You'll download the installer, run the installer, and you want to make sure that you save it to a specific file, and it'll probably save there by default, so you don't have to worry about it. I believe it's under program files, and then it's under VST. I think it's actually under x86. So if we go to program files, x86, and then we go down to VST plugins. Oh, okay. So it's not there. It's got to be in the regular program files then. VST. Yep. Okay. So it's under normal program files. This is where OBS looks for third-party plugins. Like, you can't tell OBS where to look for plugins. This is the folder that it uses to locate plugins. So if you download these plugins, make sure that's installed at C, program files, VST plugins, and just make sure that's saved in that directory, and OBS will recognize it automatically. It's not, but he told me, you troll the people you love. It's true. You do troll the people you love. Very true. Very, very true. I'm sad I put my mic in its box for the move. Aw, you're moving, huh? I have to move too pretty soon. Oh, that coffee tastes amazing. All right. So once we get that out of the way, you got everything downloaded, right? You can start using them in OBS. And really quick, just to show you how you would add these plugins, you would click the filters. Next, you click the gear icon next to the track that you want to add filters to. You click filters, and this window will pop up. You'll click the plus sign, and you want to click VST 2.x plugins. And then from here, you can kind of choose whatever plugins you want from this drop-down list. I've got a whole bunch of them here. But my REA plugins they'll be labeled REA Comp, X Comp. I got so many different ones here, and you got REA EQ, REA Fur, REA Gate. There's so many of them, and they're all actually really solid plugins. So just keep in mind that these are also totally free. You can download them free. Reaper just loves giving away free stuff. I've done everything wrong, huh? Maybe not. There's more to this. I'm hoping that you can kind of pull from this like something new, and then you'll be more comfortable trying something new at the end of the day. So this is just my method. This is how I set up my audio. This isn't necessarily wrong or right. This is just how I personally set it up, and we're going to be getting to all that right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this file here. We're going to go back. Actually, want to move this all the way over here. Home. And what I want to do is, let's mute that, and we're going to just record something again. Okay? I can't believe I keep doing this. And let's go ahead. Oh, no tracks are armed. There we go. What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my volume a little bit. So dynamic range. I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud, so that way you guys can have a bit of a louder reference. And that should be a nice little test subject right there. Okay. This is just something that I'll do to kind of like test everything out. I have the memory of a goldfish. And what's beautiful is that you will get to watch this on YouTube later. So
what's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some dynamic range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud, so that way you guys can have a bit of a louder reference. And that should be a nice little test subject right there.
now there's one thing I actually forgot to do that we're going to do really quick. I'm going to just hit record, and then we're going to just record silence. And there's a reason for it. And we're going to get into our first plugin that we're going to add, okay? We're getting into filters now. We're getting into filters. So I'm going to just record silence. In OBS, the way you would do this is that you just wouldn't talk. And normally that meter would actually bounce up and down, which is kind of interesting because right now I have no filters set on it. I've got that VST plugin set, but right now there's actually nothing on it. There's nothing going on. So it's really interesting to see that it's actually not picking up anything. However, when I'm talking into this microphone, you'll notice that meter is actually bouncing up and down when I'm quiet. It's sitting at around -6 dB, and that's because it's picking up the background noise in my room. So a microphone like this is more likely to pick that stuff up. That's why we use a noise suppressor or a gate, right? I'm going to be showing you guys how to set up a noise suppressor and a gate first, which is the first thing you're going to want to use in what's called a signal chain. Signal chains are the order that your audio is processed in. Your audio has to start at input and goes to output. So it goes in a path, right? And when you're applying plugins or filters, they are being processed in order in a signal path from the input to the output. The microphone is an input. The stream is your output. Think of it like that, right? So you talking into your microphone, that's your input source, okay? And then what people are hearing on your stream is the output result, okay? That's how you want to think of it. It's kind of the same thing here. So I have a high-pass filter on my mic. Isn't that meant to do the same thing? No, it is not. But it can be used to help combat background noise, but it does it in a different way. It uses an EQ. I will show you what a low pass filter is, specifically, and I'll demonstrate it to you guys a little later. It'll all be clear by the end of this. When we get to EQing, because EQing is probably going to take up a larger chunk of this presentation. So, the noise suppression, we're just going to find what's called ReaFur. This is included in that package. I think right now, I think I want to be under VST. Yep, there we go. ReaFur. Okay, we'll just add that in. So this is a really easy plugin to use. What this does is that it analyzes audio, and it adjusts sort of like the EQ profile, or it's sort of like a smart filtering, right? I typically set this to subtract, okay? Now, remember how I said that we need to do a recording, right? So I'll close this out really quick. Let's do that silence recording. Now, right now in the background, if you don't really hear it, there's actually a water heater in the background that's making noise. So you're going to want to use this in an instance where you might have fan noise from your computer, or if you have like, an air conditioner in your room, or if you have like a standing fan that you use to keep yourself cool. Maybe you have some sort of space heater or something like that. They make a constant noise, okay? The filter is really good for filtering out that sort of noise, like that constant, like monotone humming sound that you hear in the background in your room, right? Usually stuff produced by fans and ACs. They tend to be like this sort of hum in the background. And that can like do a lot to sort of like make your mic sound not as good. So we're going to be using the filter to tame that. Now you see that right here. It looks like there's nothing here. If I zoom in though, you can see that it's very small, but it's picking up something. There's actually some information there. And if I hit play, as a matter of fact, if I turn this up right now, I just got to remember where the gain knob is. I think it's, I can't remember. I think it's item settings. I'm going to just do it this way, where I'm going to just put a gain filter on here. I'm pretty sure that it is a JS plugin, so I think it's volume adjustment. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of boost this a lot. Like a lot. Like 60 dB. And we're going to just take a listen. That was a lot. That was too much, a lot. Let's go 21. So you guys hear that right now, right? That's in the background. That's what's constantly humming in the background in my room. And I had to boost that by 40 decibels. But when you start adding something like compression, that's going to get louder, okay? So you want to use a filter plugin like a noise reductor, like REA Fur, to help filter that stuff out, to clean up your audio. So I just removed that audio adjustment so that way I won't blow your eardrums out with that anymore. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just hit this automatically build noise profile. And then I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to let it play. But first, before I do that, I need to turn off record so that way it doesn't pick up the microphone. I'll just check this and just hit play. And that should be good enough right there. It just picked up a profile. That's how much that it's ended up removing out of the audio. And this is kind of like on the EQ spectrum, right? We'll get into EQs later, but now when I play this back, right? I probably shouldn't have removed that volume adjuster, but we'll set that back up to 40 dB and see what happens. Right? Remember signal chains. I did REA first, which is at the top. Now I've got volume adjustment at the bottom. Let's hit play. That is significantly lower. If I turn that off, so hopefully that kind of helps paint the picture a little bit, right? With how this works. This just kind of helps combat that background noise. So, when you set it up in OBS, it's going to be a lot easier to set up in OBS, believe it or not, than it is in here. You don't need to go through all these steps to get that set up, but I'm just kind of showing you as a demonstration. So now that we got that out of the way, we want to get to a gate, okay? So a gate's pretty important. A gate is necessary for trying to filter out unwanted noise, okay? So let's say you've got keyboard noises, okay? Now, this is where we're going to get talking. We're going to get into talking about signal to noise or talking about mic positioning and how this is important. It's gonna basically affect your gate and how your mic audio is coming through. We're gonna do another recording, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just try to tap a bunch of keys on the keyboard while this is going. So, let's arm it. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Okay, so now you see that we've got some of those keyboard presses picked up. We've got our audio here, and you can see that there's a pretty big difference between the two. However, no one's going to want to hear your keyboard presses in the middle of your stream. So we use a gate to try to filter that stuff out. Fortunately, OBS has their own gate that you can use, or you can use the REA filters one, which honestly, I highly recommend because it's just fantastic. It is a really good plugin. So if I just type in gate, we got REA gate right here. Now the way this works is that you got a threshold on the left-hand side, which tells the gate at which point that it needs to allow the audio to come through. So if we hit play here, you see that meter's bouncing up and down. And right now it's picking up all those key presses. All I got to do is nudge this to right about where you see that hovering, where that key press stuff is happening. And you see on the meter on the right-hand side, if you see the audio comes... Oof. This is acting funky. Oh, I see why that got messed up. Okay. Sorry, 1 second. Let me just get this set up. I forgot to turn that off. I was wondering why I was acting all funky. Now we got that sorted. There we go. See, that's a lot louder than before. So you can see that it's picking up all that keyboard pressing and stuff. And it's coming through. You've got this indicator on the right-hand side over here telling you that the audio is coming through the gate. We don't want that. We don't want any of that audio coming through, so we just adjust it until it doesn't come through anymore.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2.
Go back and play that one more time. So we get that little key press that came through, so I nudge it up a little more. Pay attention to where it happened. It was right over here. See, it's still coming through. Nudge it up some more. I'll go back to this point. Still coming through. Keep going. I think we got it. All right, cool. Now let's see how our voice sounds coming in.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2.
Okay, so there's something wrong with the gate right now. Did you notice how my voice kind of went, testing, 1 2, testing? It kind of got cut off, right? It's probably because we have the attack set a little too high, okay? So what I like to do with the gate is I like to set this to 1 millisecond. So like the fastest that it can possibly go.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2.
Now the other problem here, this has a really neat function. It's called a pre-open. It can actually predict ahead of time when it needs to turn on. So to kind of combat that, I'll just turn the pre-open up a little bit. Maybe like 8 milliseconds.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2.
Thank you very much, Creepy. I appreciate that, man. I'm going to just nudge that some more, maybe about 13 milliseconds.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2.
Let's try setting the attack to 0 milliseconds, see how that works out.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2.
See, it's kind of a balancing act, right? Now, with mic positioning, that sort of signal to noise ratio, you can see how this right down here is a lot quieter than the rest of everything. Your mic positioning is really important here. So if I had the microphone like way out here, pointed towards my keyboard, if I did another recording, right? If I did another recording, I can guarantee you that's going to pick up more keyboard noise. So I've got the mic set about further back, pointed towards me, right? It's off camera right now, but it's right here, okay? So I'm going to just go ahead and hit record. I'm going to just disable this for now. I'm going to type on the keyboard. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Okay, take a look at this now. You see the volume difference between these right here and this over here is a lot smaller than this, okay? The signal to noise ratio is a lot closer between each other, right? It's a much less of a difference between the signals. Signal to noise ratio helps make filtering out unwanted noise a lot easier, okay? So if you want to have an easier time with a gate, the main reason why I recommend that people get their mic closer is so that the difference between your voice and any background noise is significantly bigger. And it makes using things like a gate and a noise suppression plugin a lot easier. So you end up getting a much cleaner result by doing that. So this is why I talk so highly about mic positioning and stuff like that. And I set up a microphone really quickly to kind of demonstrate too how much the sound changes when we go into a different part of the room. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take this, I'm going to hit record. I'm going to take this microphone over to that side of the room and I'm going to record something. And you're going to hear the difference because right in here where I'm sitting is actually a treated room. There's quote unquote treated, a bunch of moving blankets put up around the room so I can try to tame the reflections in the room. So I'm going to just take this microphone over to that side and I'm going to record something really quick and then we're going to listen back to it. Okay, so I just did a bit of a recording there. I brought it over to a different part of the room, which is much less treated. We'll hear it back in just a second. It's got to bring the microphone back. Now, why don't we take a listen back to this? Because I know you guys weren't able to hear it.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Microphone check. 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everyone? John the Zaz here. Can you hear all that echo? There's a lot of it, right?
Now, if we go back and we check the previous audio that we recorded earlier.
What's going on, everyone? John the Zaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my... back up a little bit, get really loud, so that way you got...
Now, notice how this audio that we recorded earlier sounds a lot more full than this audio here?
Testing 1 2. Microphone check. 1 2 1 2.
Oh, that's awkward.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Microphone check. 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everyone? John the Zaz here.
We go back over here.
We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my voice.
Now, I was sitting at about the same microphone distance from the microphone, but the early results sound a lot cleaner and a lot more full than the new results from that recording I just did, right? And that's because the room is not treated, right? There's a lot more room reflection, creating what's called phase cancellation, which causes the audio to thin out. And you get a lot more room echo in the audio. And when you start setting the microphone really far away, you get a lot more of that echo. So it's all about balancing out your signal to noise pretty much. Now, we've kind of gotten to this point here. We're going to go back to this part of the audio over here.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here.
This is the better result, clearly. So we're gonna use this as a reference, and we're gonna start setting up everything else. So what I'm gonna be adding next is what's called a compressor. So we've got our gate set up, we've got REA first set up, and another thing I like to do with the gate, I like to set the release fairly long. So I like to set it to like 300 milliseconds that stays on. John, maybe rebrand to. I'm listening. Zaws of knowledge. Someone suggested that I call myself John the Prof, for like short for like professor. And I was like, that's kind of cool, but like, well, people think that I'm saying like John the Prophet or something. But whatever. We're getting kind of close to the end of the presentation, so why don't we kind of get to the next part? Compression and EQ. So what I'm going to do is add a compressor. This is something that comes stock with OBS, so you can use OBS's compressor if you really want to. It's actually pretty solid. You don't need to use REA Fur by any means. You don't need to use REA Comp at all. But I do like REA Comp's compressor because it gives you instant feedback and tells you it tells you on the fly what kind of changes you're making to your audio in a positive way, and I do like it. So we got our gate on. We've got REA Fur on, and now what we're going to do is we're going to start setting up the compressor.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to...
So a compressor, to kind of demonstrate what a compressor does, you see this little volume slider right down here where my microphone is, right? It's what a compressor does is that whenever the audio reaches a certain point in the decibel range, it's basically the same as taking this slider and then just like nudging it down in real time, just like this. And you see how it goes, how I move it up and down like that? There's like a sort of motion to it, right? It takes a certain amount of time for me to bring that slider down, right? It's not instant, you know? There's a certain amount of time that it takes for me to physically move the slider down to where I want it to. That's essentially what all these attack and release parameters adjust. Okay, so I'm going to be making a video on compression like at a later time. So you guys will get a lot more info out of that video than you will today. But in short, when you're adjusting your attack and release parameters on a compressor, you're basically adjusting how quickly you turn the volume down like that, and how quickly it goes back up to normal volume. It's as if I'm doing this with the slider right down here in the lower left-hand corner. It's as if I'm doing that. So if I was talking like this, it's as if it's doing this on the fly. And it creates that very crushed sound. It takes your louder parts of your audio, brings it down to the quieter part to make things sound a lot more even. So my goal with this compressor is that I want to make sure that regardless of the volume that I'm speaking at, you're going to hear me clearly. So that might involve using fairly heavy compression. That's how you get that sort of broadcasting sound that you hear either on my stream or on other people's streams these days. It's all about the compression. If you had to choose between just using compression and just using EQ, I would probably say just use. It really depends. You know what I mean? I can't say just use either, but if I had to choose, I'd probably just use the compression because I feel like just being heard. And this isn't a stream scenario. In a streaming scenario, I would just use the compressor. And that's probably why OBS doesn't have its own EQ plugin, is because you probably get a lot more from a compressor than you can from an EQ. But my goal here is to try to get this kind of even out. So I'm going to hit play here. And the first thing I'm probably going to want to adjust is the ratio. The ratio determines how much compression is happening. So the higher you set the ratio, the more the volume is going to get turned down whenever that audio reaches the threshold. So the threshold and the ratio kind of work together, okay? I'm going to start at setting it at about like 3-to-1. We'll start there. I think right now I have mine set to 3-to-1, which is pretty good. So if you want like an idea of where you should normally set it for like for voiceovers or like for streaming, anywhere between 2-to-1 to 4-to-1 is pretty good. If you wanted to go up to 6-to-1, go ahead. But at that point, you're starting to get a lot closer to limiting, which we're going to add at the end. I would recommend somewhere between 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 or 2-to-1. Those are good settings to use, and you get sort of differing results with each one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to vary my volume a little bit.
So now we can hear we're having problems with the gate. And that's because we probably have it set too high. So I'm going to kind of compensate that a little bit. I'm going to bring it down, even if it means letting some of the key presses come through. That's just the situation we're in because we couldn't quite get the signal to noise as separate as we like.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some dynamic range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud so that way.
So I'm going to go back to that section right there where it's really quiet. We're going to hit play.
What I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some dynamic range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud so that way you guys can have a bit of a louder reference. And
cool. Now, let's go back to the compressor. So, looking at the compressor, you got this red meter on the right-hand side.
What I need to do is I need to kind of vary my
This red meter is telling you how much compression is happening. I'm actually going to bring down this down some more because I want to get a little bit of compression on this stuff right here.
What I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some dynamic range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud so that way you guys can have a bit of a louder reference. And that should be...
You probably noticed that the audio actually got quieter as a result of using the compression, and that's intended, right? It's going to start out quieter because whenever you use compression, you're going to lose volume. That's what it's doing. It's automatically turning your volume down.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some dynamic range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud so that way you guys can have a bit of a louder reference. And
I'm just playing with the threshold here a little bit. I might have the compression, the ratio set a little too high, but I think I actually kind of like it. We're going to stick with that. What I'm also going to do is I might play around with my release just a little bit. I might make that a little bit longer.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some dynamic range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud so that way you guys...
So another thing we have to notice is that this is kind of telling you about how much it's reducing the volume. If you take a look down here at the bottom, it actually gives you a number.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the...
And what that's telling you is that at most, it reduced the volume by -17. So if you wanted to make up for that, what I could do is I could just type in 17. Well, actually, it's about 18, so we'll go 18. Because we lost 17 decibels of gain. This is telling you how much it's reducing the volume of the source by. And you can see that it changes depending on which part we get to. Now what I've done is I've adjusted the wet signal to go to plus 18. So that makes up. It's called the output mix right here, the wet signal, that's called the makeup gain. You'll actually get a makeup gain slider in OBS's compressor.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some dynamic range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud so that way you guys can have a bit of a louder reference. And that should be a nice little test subject right there.
Now you notice how that was like a lot more even? And I think that might have just been a little too loud.
John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of
I saw that there was some clipping over here on the left-hand side.
And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some dynamic range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud so that way you guys...
Yeah, we clipped. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually reduce this by like 2 decibels.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test.
And if we compare that, right, to what we had before.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary.
Hear how much the volume is different? Like it varies a lot.
Dynamic range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud so that way you guys can have a bit of a louder reference.
Now we play that again with the compression
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some dynamic range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud so that way you guys can have a bit of a louder reference. And
the Weave.
Nice
Thank you so much for the raid, man.
Right
Welcome to the audio masterclass, my dude. Happy to have you here. Appreciate the raid. Welcome everybody. I'm John Lazaz. in the middle of a bit of an audio masterclass, and you can watch this on YouTube later. Right now, I'm just covering the filters that I use in OBS, and we're just kind of getting all that stuff set up. And right now, I've got the compressor set to about where I would probably want it for this. This is actually pretty good. These settings I'm actually totally happy with. Maybe I'll adjust the attack a little bit, because what the attack will do is it'll make it so that the syllables are a little more like percussive, right? They kind of like have a little bit more bite to them when I talk.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some dynamic range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud, so that way you guys can have a bit of a louder reference. And that should be a nice little test subject right there.
I think right about there is pretty good. So what I'm listening to is the initial, like whenever I'm like saying a word, like especially like something like a T or a P, like you hear it sounds a little more percussive. And when I turn the attack all the way down, there's almost none of that there. So I'm going to just set it to 0.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some dynamic range.
And then when I set it back to about, I think I had it at what, like 8?
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my
It's very subtle, but like I can hear that like there's a little more like dynamics involved whenever like the initial syllable of every word is coming in. So that's just kind of how I like to set it up. It basically tells the compressor to wait a little longer before turning the volume all the way down to where it's supposed to. We're going to move on to EQ now, because like these are settings I'm totally happy with. We're going to move them over to OBS afterwards. But because we're kind of running short on time, I'm actually over my time right now. So why don't we go ahead and go to EQ? This is the part that's probably going to take the most time. So we got REA EQ. This is not included in OBS Studio. OBS Studio does not have an EQ. And EQ is honestly the one thing that you can do with just about any mic source to help make it sound better, okay? Getting good at EQ takes a long time. And it's not something that I can go over completely in this one masterclass. This is literally, I could hold a masterclass just on EQ itself. I could hold a masterclass just on compression by itself, okay? But for streaming application compression, you don't need to know much about it. For EQ though, doesn't matter what the context is, you need to know a lot about it, okay? But the concept is pretty simple. If you've ever been in a car before and you've had that sort of like a treble and bass adjustment knob on your radio, that's all this is. It's this, but more complex, and you can adjust more of that band. So you have a lot more control over the frequency content of your microphone. And next masterclass confirmed. We'll just talk about EQs? All right, no problem. But in summary, the EQ is what I use for correction, for frequency correction, for any frequencies that I find to be a little harsh or like not pleasant, or for boosting frequencies. If I want more bass in my microphone, I will use the EQ for that, or what's called tone shaping. So if there's a particular sound that I want out of my microphone, I can make adjustments to the EQ to make it sound more close to something else. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of listen back, and we're going to see...
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit.
And what I'm going to do now is we're going to go back to my other source, okay? So my reference source. What is going on here? Oh, okay. I see what's going on. Here we go. I automatically opened up automation. I did not mean to. There we go. I just hope that it's not panned.
What's going on, everyone?
Okay, we're good. We're good. I was freaking out there for a minute. I'm going to take all these other sources over here. Just move them out of the way. There we go. And if you guys ever want me to do a masterclass on digital audio workstations, if you guys want to learn how to use those, then let me know. We'll get some. Maybe we'll get a poll together, and we'll see if we can make that happen in the future. Because I think a lot of people who do content creation could benefit from learning a digital audio workstation, especially if you want to make custom sounds or if you want to edit your voiceovers. So it's actually worth learning how to use one. I agree. Indeed. So we'll put that on the block too, and maybe we'll hold a vote for it. We'll see what people want. Either learn EQs or, whatever you guys want to learn first. Anyway, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be referencing my SM7B, and just to kind of, I'm going to quickly transfer my settings. Let me just, I got to nudge this up here because there's apparently see, because now I've got I'm just gonna move this over here. So I've got the same compressor on my SM7B as I do on my my MXL. Just label that. So I'm just gonna type SM7B. There we go. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play back the SM7B.
Everyone, John Azaz here. Just doing a little bit of a test recording here. Just kind of.
Now I'm gonna just go ahead and just play this back.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording
here, just kind of talk at different dynamics.
These sound totally different, right?
Kind of see how the mic
really loud, so that way you guys can have a. What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz.
So what I can tell by just listening to the two side by side is that this microphone, the MXL, has a lot more high end content. So treble, it's a lot more on the sort of frequencies, right? That's the best way to describe treble. The treble frequencies sound a lot more like a high frequency sound, right? If I was to go into the EQ right now and pull that up, this is the EQ for the MXL. This is the treble side on the right-hand side.
What's going on, everyone? John.
If I turn that up, you're going to hear those sort of frequencies get a lot sharper.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And
it's a lot more clear, right? But you don't necessarily want to boost those. You don't want to typically boost treble that high because if it can end up sounding really what's called shrilly, and that can end up especially sounding really bad whenever you get a lot of S sounds and stuff like that. So you got to keep that factored in. Don't go too crazy with treble. What I like to do personally with treble is I will, go down right here, set the gain down to 0. I will just kind of bump it up a little bit. So if I were to just go ahead and just disable this right here, you can click any tab. You can see that there are numbers that are represented on that graph over there. And I can just disable the one I don't. And this is how I check to see if the change I made is positive or negative. So if we listen back.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some dynamic range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud, so that way you guys can have a bit of a louder reference.
And see, it's very subtle. I'm not doing anything crazy. But honestly, I don't really want to boost on that side because I feel like this microphone already has plenty of it. What I'm actually going to do instead is I'm going to cut some of that. So we're going to go ahead and just cut that a little bit. Just kind of tame it.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some dynamic range.
Now we'll take a listen back to that before.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way.
To me, that sounds a lot more tame. Like it doesn't sound quite as harsh in my ears. So I'm going to stick with that for now. And now if we compare that to what we have with our SM7B.
What's going on, everyone? John Azaz here. Just doing a
recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my
and kind of see how the mic sounds when I move.
Now this mic obviously has a lot more clarity. That's kind of one of the beauties of the SM7B is that like when you talk right into it, like its articulation's really good. So what you're probably hearing sounds like there's a lot more high end in it. And part of that's probably because of the preamp that I'm using with my SM7B. That's that orange thing that you see down there. That's a microphone preamp. It's probably contributing to the way that mic sounds in some way.
Everyone, John Azaz here. Just doing a little bit of a test recording here. Just kind of.
But I think most of it is chalked up to the articulation. And that's not necessarily because of the high end. And I think that by reducing the high end a little bit in this microphone helps to just make it sound a little closer to it.
Everyone, John Azaz
here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some dynamic range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud. What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here.
We're just doing a little bit of a test recording here.
Now, obviously, there seems to be like a lot more bass coming from the SM7B by like a long shot. So what I'm noticing is that
What's going on, everyone? What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here.
The low end isn't quite where I would like it. Now, if you're still in here, Ronnie, the kind of explain what a low pass filter is, I'm going to add a low pass filter right now. A high pass filter. Now, you can see that what it looks like on the left-hand side, that's all the bass frequencies, the rumble frequencies. So like, whatever. So you know what bass is. You know what bass sounds like. It's something that's more felt, right? You feel bass more than you hear it. I might die in about 3 hours because I'm making chicken. Good luck. But a low pass filter, essentially a high pass filter, allows high frequencies through and by cutting out low frequencies. And that's what a low pass filter does. So you can see it right now. I've got it disabled.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just
When I enable
do a
it,
bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little
here
bit.
a lot of that
so
bass
that way we get some
disappears.
Dynamic range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud, so that way you guys can have a bit of a louder reference. And
I personally like to add a little bit of a low pass filter to everything, pretty much. Just a little bit, because a lot of those frequencies on the left, the far left of the bass spectrum, isn't really heard by human hearing or is not really productive, especially for like voiceover. So what I typically might do is I might just filter out the very end, kind of like right around, right around like 30 hertz or so, maybe around 40. You can see that while I'm moving that, it's showing, 40 hertz. So you can actually click right down here to see what it says frequency. You can move that to a specific spot. So right around 45 or so.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test.
You don't really
recording
notice it, but it helps free up space in the mix. But I want more bass. So where can I boost exactly? I can take this 2-band right here, and I can kind of just pick it right around here, and I can boost
What's
it.
going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of
a neat little trick that I like to do when I'm like trying to figure out exactly how I want to set this is I want to find the exact frequency that I want to boost. So I'll make the bandwidth fairly narrow, and I'll boost the gain. And then I'll just kind of take this frequency slider and I'll adjust it until I find that sweet spot.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some.
With this microphone, I find that right around here is the most lacking area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this back down to 0. I'm going to widen the bandwidth again. I'll set it back to default, so it's 2. And I'm going to go ahead and just start boosting it as I play.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that
sounds pretty good. I like that. So now that we compare that to our SM7B.
How's it going, everyone? John Lazaz here.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to...
Now, it's not perfect, but it's close, right?
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here.
Doing a little bit of a test recording here, just kind of talk it.
Kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some dynamic range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud.
Bigfollows.com, guys. You want to grow your stream? There you go.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding.
But you can see that how I'm referencing off of that microphone to kind of get everything right. And you probably also notice that it doesn't sound exactly the same. So anyone that tells you that you can get most microphones to sound exactly like an SM7B, to you. Okay. It's not 100% true. I'm just gonna be honest. You can get most microphones to sound quote unquote close, right? But they won't sound exactly like it. There are too many other factors about the microphone that make it unique that that you just can't replicate it. Okay. So that doesn't mean that like other microphones are bad. It's just that if you want that specific sound, you should get that microphone. Okay.
What's going on, everyone? John.
But then again, like this microphone's also fairly cheap. You shouldn't expect a lot from it. Okay. If it was a more expensive microphone, I would probably say yes. You could probably make a case, right? But this is a much less expensive microphone. So, next thing I'm probably gonna want to do.
What's going on, everyone? John.
How's it going, everyone? John Lazaz here.
There are parts about this SM7B that I'm not liking myself right now at the moment. In terms of normally, I would actually cut certain frequencies right that are present in this, but I'm just gonna listen from here on out to this microphone by itself.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here.
And what I'm listening to right now is a specific weird frequency. It's kind of like it's a weird shrilly frequency that I can't quite pinpoint what it is. So I'm gonna try to find it. I'm gonna boost this 3-band. Do the same thing I did before. Make it narrow. And I'm going to just sweep it until I find it.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some dynamic range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud, so that way you guys can have a bit of a louder reference. And that should be...
I think it's right around here.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my
I think it's actually right around here. So if I just go ahead and disable it.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my...
Let's bring it down a little bit. See if that helps.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some dynamic. What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that.
I actually think that sounds really good. And what I might do is I might just reduce this like two, just a little bit, so that it's not boosting quite as much.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit.
And if you want to hear how it sounds without the EQ,
what's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just
I'm
going to
turn it on now.
Test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some dynamic range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud, so that way you guys can have a bit of a louder reference. And that should be a nice little test subject right there. What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary.
I'm going to bring the two down just a little bit
so that way we can get some dynamic range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud, so that way you guys can have a.
I think that's probably going to be pretty good. Now, there's one last thing I want to do. I want to actually add a band. Okay, so that's a whole new band right there. And I want to just kind of reduce a little bit in the low and the mid frequencies just a touch. So I'm going to just bring that down a little bit.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some dynamic range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud, so that way you guys can have a bit of a louder reference. And that should be a nice little test subject.
I think that's going to be pretty good right there. So why don't we go ahead and just listen to the before and after? Everything. I'm going to turn off the filter.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here.
This was the mic before.
A bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what.
Now this is the mic with all the processing.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some dynamic.
Before.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here.
After.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some dynamic range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud, so that way you guys can have.
Now, there's one thing I want to highlight specifically in this audio. And this is an instance where you might want to use a pop filter. Take a listen really closely to this little plosive that you hear. A plosive is like that sort of like a p or a b sound that you hear, and it sounds like a bunch of wind is blowing into the microphone.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording.
So right around here, this part right here, we're going to be doing a bit of a test recording.
We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get.
You can hear that there's like wind blowing into the microphone. Now, this is where a pop filter is useful. You just want to attach that to whatever stand you got. And then what you normally do is you want to place it in front of the microphone, but you don't want it touching. Kind of makes it pointless. You want to distance it a little bit. So maybe we're right about here. You can play around with it. The whole point is that this is obstructing wind from reaching the microphone. It won't do much to change the sound of your microphone, but it'll combat a lot of those plosives that are getting into the microphone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick recording over here. I'm going to just say like, I'm just going to say a phrase with a bunch of plosives in it without the pop filter, and I'm going to put it in front and we're going to say the same thing. Okay, let's arm it. All right, buddies, someone tell me where I can get some pizza. I am really hungry and I would love some pizza, please. Buddy, tell me about it. Okay, so I was talking right into the microphone, so the plosives should be pretty extreme. You can actually see when you look at the actual waveform that they're pretty sharp.
I am really hungry and I would love some pizza, please.
Hear all that wind blowing into the microphone? As a matter of fact, I actually clipped our signal. That's not good. So I'm going to put a pop filter in front of it. Let's repeat what we said.
I am really hungry and I would love some pizza, please. Buddy, tell me about it.
And see, all those little syllables kind of like contribute to that sort of plosive sound. So we're going to go ahead and we got a filter in front of it. We're going to go ahead and talk into it again. I'm really hungry. Someone tell me where to get some pizza, please. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. I'll save it. And let's listen back.
I'm really hungry. Someone tell me where to get some pizza, please. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
It's way lower now, right? That's what you use a wind filter for, or a windscreen. That's what you use a pop filter for. Use it to cut those plosives down. So, in this case, where it sounded like this before,
love some pizza, please, buddy. Tell me about it.
And then
I'm
it sounds like this
hungry.
before.
Someone tell me where to get some pizza, please. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
The magical thing, man. Tell me. These are you have so many different ways to get pop filters that, and you have many options too. You have so many options in terms of like what you can get. That is a huge, yeah, it really is. It's a massive difference. And that's what a pop filter is used for. It's for cutting out those plosive sounds that you heard. Have your questions ready? Yes, exactly. We're getting close to the end right now. So if you guys have any questions for the Q&A, I'm going to spend about no more than an hour kind of answering your questions, and I will try to answer as many of them as I can. So we're getting close to the end. This is the last step that I do when I set up my microphone, okay, is I add what's called a limiter. Now, in Reaper, like, they have a limiter. It's okay, right? I actually like OBS's limiter. I think it's perfectly acceptable. So I'm going to show you where I put it in the signal chain. So you can see it right now. I've got REA fur, REA gate, comp, and EQ in that order from top to bottom. So the input starts at the top, the output comes at the bottom. You can play around with the signal chain between EQ and comp if you really want to. You can, if you like the way that it sounds doing EQ first, then go ahead. You can actually move those things around. So you can see right now I've got EQ in front. If we take a listen to the signal that we have back here, we can try to hear the difference. So we'll go back to our original source.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And
now let's go back and we'll swap them.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little.
It's an extremely subtle difference, but that subtle difference might be the difference for you. So experiment with that, okay? A lot of people in the audio community argue between whether or not to use EQ first or compression first, right? No one's on a consensus on that because it's always situational on it. Czar, don't worry about it. You made it, man, and you made it to the Q&A. So if you have any questions, you can start getting them ready, and I'll do my best to answer them for you. Now, adding a limiter, I always put a limiter at the end of the chain, and that's to keep the signal from clipping, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just add a limiter at the end. Limiter. Okay, we got a master limiter. I'll just use that. That's fine. And then I'll always set the limit to about -1. For streaming, that's totally fine. -1 decibel is good. Okay, and I'll show you how to do that in OBS. So my question, what is small wins you can do with your room setup? For example, lower noise echo. Okay, I will answer that question in the Q&A 100% because you have a lot of options. So good. Just start queuing up questions. And I'll try to go back and cycle through the chat and answer them. So that'll be the first question I answer once we get to that. So you can see I've got the master at the end of the chain. I got it set to like -1, and I don't really do much else to it. I just set it to there so that way anytime the audio reaches that point, the limiter keeps the audio from ever going past -1 decibel. And if you take a look down here where you see the recording, right? If I were to just like boost it, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit
What's
play.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn the comp up really high.
Dynamic range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud, so that way you guys can have a bit of a louder reference. And that should be a nice little test subject right there.
The audio never goes past -1 dB at any point. So that's just putting a hard limit on everything. And that's something you should always do with your mic audio. Best audio filter software for plug-and-play microphones. All right. I will get to that as well. Indeed. I appreciate you labeling a question, too. That's good. I really appreciate that. The last thing I'm going to show you guys now, I'm listening to John, talking about John. What's up, Junior? Good to see you, man. So this is the last step. How do I take the settings that I have made in Reaper and put them in OBS? Okay? Pretty easy. So as we know, we can use the same plugins, right? Now this might take a little bit of time, but this is how I would do it. I could open Reaper and I could keep it open right over here, right? I can go to each one. So as I was saying before with REA fur, so I'm going to add REA first as well. Let's see. REA first standalone, good enough. Close. By the way, if you have Reaper, you shouldn't need to download ReaPlugs. So keep that in mind. Let's go back to our filter section here. I'm going to open up the plugin interface. So now you see we got the same plugin that we would have in Reaper. I'm going to set this to subtract. And we're going to go to, we're going to do the automatic. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to not talk. We're going to set up REA fur. I'm going to wait till the dog stops moving around because it'll get picked up on my microphone. Do this. Let's put the mic where we're supposed to, right here. Right? Let's get the pop filter in front because why not, right? Sounds great. So we're going to do that. Okay. Now, obviously, if you're playing a game, this is a problem. Okay. So a good alternative might be to put it off to the side like this. Okay. That's a good little alternative. So you could do it that way, right? So when you're setting up your mic, put the mic in the situation that you're going to have it in. Okay. I was just for demonstration purposes. My question. Okay. I'll read off the questions. I'll go back and read the questions once we get to that. So like I said, we're going to just set this subtract. I'm going to just stop talking. We're going to set it up. All right, cool. So that's good enough right there. We can actually stop. We're done setting that up. We want to go to the gate now. REA gate. This is actually one of my favorite gate plugins. You can use OBS's as well if you would like to. Oh, okay. REA for now. I got to set that up again because I'm a dingus. Okay, that should be good. Let's add a new one. So we hit the plus sign, VST 2.x. And you know what I like to do? I like to label them. So call it gate. And we'll do the same here. We'll rename this to REA fur. That way, you're just not getting confused. We've got a gate. We'll add a gate in there. Boom. And now we just pull up the gate over here. And we can just directly copy all the settings. We can actually type in each and every setting. So 13, 0, 313. And then we'll set the threshold to minus 32.9. There we go. Done. You can type in every single parameter in this, which is beautiful. All right. Close that out. Close that out. Okay, double check it, make sure everything's good. Let's add a new one. VST 2.x. Let's call this one. I think next we use the comp, right? Comp. Compressor. Select REA comp. We'll open the plugin interface. Click over here. Go back to OBS. We'll just start copying settings. So I got it set to about 8.9. 146, 3, and minus 36.8 on the threshold. And then for the wet, I set that to 16. Okay, done. Come back here. Now we're going to add our EQ. This might take a little bit more effort because you got to manage individual tabs. Okay. Stick that in there. REA EQ. Open the plugin interface. Now we're going to go select the EQ. Now we're going to start going band by band. I got to add one more band because we have 5 bands there, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to start copying settings. So we go this one. We'll start with that. That's supposed to be a low pass, a high pass. So let's set that to a high pass right there. The frequency is at 44.9. And that one's done. We actually set the bandwidth a little bit, so we got 1.8. 1.80. Next, we got 2. We're going to start copying those settings. What I'm actually going to do here is that way, like, I can keep it in sight. Go over here. This should make life a little easier. All right. So we got 2 now. We're going to set that to 109.1. 1.6. That 2. That one's all set. Go to 3 now. 2, 4, 2, 4.6. Minus 3.9. 0.48. And that one's done. Next we go to 4. Copy those. It's actually a high shelf. And that's fine. So we're just going to go ahead and copy that. That's at 10, 601.1. Oh, sorry, 0.4. Minus 1.4. 0.48. 0.48. There you go. Not a big deal. It would have done the same thing either way. And for the band, this last one, the 5 band, copy all those. 431.9 minus 2.2, 1.12. I am not a good typer. Not a good typer. And guess what? The EQ's done. The exact same EQ profile as what we had in the DAW. So in theory, it should sound the same. Okay. Now the last step we're going to do here, add a limiter. And I like to just use OBS's limiter because it's straightforward and it does the job. So I got a limiter on the end. -1. Done. That's it. We have set up our microphone for OBS. And now when you talk into it, you can see that my levels are roughly about where they were before, which is pretty excellent. I mean, like obviously over here, probably going to want it that way. What I'm probably going to be doing is I might actually take this signal. I might boost it some more. I mean, this is actually giving me an accurate representation of what my audio is actually set at right now. Make it a lot easier. So you do all this in Reaper first to make it easier on adjusting the sound to where you like. Yes, exactly. That's exactly why I use Reaper, is because I can sit here and I can play back my sound in real time.
What's going on, everyone? John.
And I can hear all the changes that I make on the fly, and I can compare them directly to other sources. In this case, I used my SM7B as a source to reference.
How's it going, everyone? John Lazaz here.
Obviously, it doesn't sound quite the same.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here.
But I got it about as close as I could reasonably get it without getting all these weird artifacts and so like that's really about it. It's close enough, but it's not exactly the same. There's a wild difference that I'm hearing with the SM7B. Like it's obviously different to me. Not really just in volume, but just in terms of like actual sound quality, just the way it sounds. It just sounds way different to me. It was actually clipping a little bit, so maybe if I just bring that back up, the SM7B, probably bring it to like minus, I don't know. We'll bring it to like 14. That should be good. Let's listen back to that.
How's it going,
What's going on, everyone?
So we just solo that.
How's it going, everyone? John Lazaz here. Just doing a little bit of a test recording here.
Listen down to this is the MXL.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we...
They sound different for sure, but I feel like they're about on a similar level, you know, in terms of like presentation. I would be happy with this. I would be totally happy with this mic sound. You know what I mean? I would not be disappointed with it at all. And because what matters to me most is that it's pleasant for people to listen to. The SM7B to me, it just produces a specific sound that I like, and it makes it a lot easier for me to set it up so that I don't have to do as much work to it to get it to sound the way I want it to. That's what you should be thinking about when you buy a microphone, first and foremost. I just want to double check the audio real quick. I'm going to set this turn off mono, and we're just going to make sure that our levels are decent. So you can see right now, this is actually pretty low. I don't want it to be right around there. I actually want to go a little higher with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to filters just to make a slight adjustment. Go to my comp. I'm just going to turn this up some more. I'm going to go to 18. We'll go with that. So I boosted it up 2 decibels. Move that out of the way. We can take a look at the meter. So it's hovering at right about -5, -3. That's actually a good spot that you're going to want it. And that's actually good enough. So I know this is a weird place to abruptly end, but we did go way over our time. This ended up going like way longer than I expected. And I apologize for making this longer than I really intended to. But this is the whole entire process right here. This is what I go through to kind of like get the audio sound as good to get the audio results that I look for in my stream audio. And hopefully after watching this, you guys have a better understanding moving forward. Now we have gotten to the Q&A section. I'm going to go and start addressing questions. So I'm going to go just kind of look through the chat real quick. And the first question I got was from Kaiser. So what is small wins that you can do for your room or setup, for example, to lower noise or echo? So the first thing that I would do before I even consider doing anything to the room is that I would try to get the mic closer to me. And I talked earlier about signal to noise ratio. Again, signal to noise ratio, if we go back into the DAW here, is sort of the difference between your vocal audio and everything else in the background. This piece of audio right here demonstrates it the best where I was typing on the keyboard. And if I just kind of remove the gate and stuff first, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So go back to this. And if we look down at our meter down in the lower left-hand corner, it's sitting somewhere around like, it's saying around minus 47 average, right? And then we look at like the volume of our voice in relation to that.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2.
It's like minus 6, so there's a big difference between the two. Basically making those two sources contrast each other more will help alleviate like room sound. It'll take away the influence of the room. But you'll see that even when I went into a different room, it affected the mic audio. So if I turn off the effects completely over here, and I go to this audio that I recorded in a different room that's untreated.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Microphone check 1 2 1 2.
If I were to turn on the compressor right now and everything else.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Microphone check 1 2 1 2.
That's awkward. Like had a weird little splurgy moment.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Microphone check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everyone? John.
All right, now what if we compare that to our audio that we just processed?
Range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud, so that way you guys can have a bit of a louder reference.
Make sure to watch it again on YouTube. I appreciate you coming in and hang out, Originals. Right. Thank you. But you can hear the difference between these two audio sources is drastic.
Range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud, so that way you guys can have a bit of a louder reference. Test recordings that we...
So your room can play a very heavy influence on the way that your mic sounds.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test.
Now, what I've done in here is I've hung up a bunch of moving blankets on the walls, okay? Because I can't afford proper treatment, and the way that you would mount room treatment is either by using a spray-on adhesive, or you would use like a thumbtack or like some kind of a nail to nail the sound treatment into the walls, right? There's a bunch of ways that you can mount sound treatment, but typically people usually use a spray-on adhesive on the back of it. So you're committing that foam treatment to the walls pretty much. And when you have to like actually remove it, it can get pretty messy. So, if you decide to get room treatment, you do have to commit to it. So for any of you guys who are like renting a space, you might not want to use a spray-on adhesive if you don't want to just completely get rid of your security deposit.
What's going on? So, John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a...
You might have to consider other alternatives. Something like hanging moving blankets on the walls. You know what I mean? It's not the best option, but it's better than nothing. I also made some bass traps in the back. You can actually see a couple of them behind the mixer. Those two black panels, they might be kind of hidden in the background, but they're in the back over there. They're basically just like insulation. Q1 is around this market. Indeed. Is around this market. Okay. But right there in the back, those panels are basically what's called it's like a soundproofing insulation. Just kind of like and I use a burlap. I use burlap to cover it, so that way like audio can actually get through it, and it doesn't look like there's this insulation like sitting in a frame, and it just kind of holds it in there. We should cut the Q&A and make short movie snacks for all channels, not just YouTube. We could do that, actually. Why not? But yeah, so your option would be to either use, in short, would either be to use sound treatment, right? You can look at acoustic panels and stuff like that, or bass traps, or you could consider a temporary solution, like you could stuff your room with like different types of furniture, like a couch, for example, or like a bookshelf full of books. That does a lot to help absorb some sound and room reflections and stuff. But the main thing that causes a lot of that reflective sound is solid bare walls, right? So like any sort of solid surface is going to reflect sound no matter what. It's going to bounce off the walls and come back in your microphone. That's what echo is. It's the result of your voice bouncing off the walls and coming back into the microphone. Even with one of these dynamic microphones, you're still going to get that to some degree. But in order to combat that without having to buy a bunch of sound treatment, you just bring the mic closer and try to increase that signal to noise ratio. So that way that the sound is much different with your voice compared to everything else around you. I think it's good content with a short answer to important questions. Yeah, I could actually make a separate video on that completely. Carito. Heard my name. Hey. But why don't we go ahead and address the next question, because there really isn't too much to that question. Really the short, like I said, it's just sound treatment or just mic distancing is the two things that you can do right off of the bat. All right, let's see here. Next question. Best audio filter software. This is from Creepy Nanners. Best audio filter software for plug and play mics. Okay, so if you're talking about like audio filter software for OBS, the filters that I use today are probably the best that I can recommend. You can either just use the ones that come with OBS, which are totally fine, or you could use the Reaper plugins that I got. There are other third-party plugins that you could totally buy, which would make this discussion totally different and it would go on forever. But if you're talking about processing your microphones, for example, for people in Discord to hear, your only real option, honestly, is probably Voicemeeter. Voicemeeter has compression and EQ built into it that you can use, and it'll allow you to process the microphone so that people in Discord can hear your processed audio. Now, this is just speaking in my experience with Voicemeeter. I had a lot of trouble getting Voicemeeter to stay stable in the long term. It worked out great for Voicemeeter worked out great for like a few months, and then it just gradually started to cause problems. Like I used to have audio would static out. Yes, exactly. It makes your mic crack. Now, there are settings you can play with in Voicemeeter to help combat that. It's called adjusting the buffer, but then you end up with more delay, right? Which doesn't matter in Discord because it's Discord, right? But like on your stream, it's going to cause camera sync problems. So like your audio is probably going to lag behind your video, and you'll have to add in what's called a sync filter. So if I have like a source, like a display capture, if I wanted to add a sync filter, pretend this is my camera right here on screen. What I'll do is I'll go to, can't remember specifically what it was. I think it was the render delay. So you want to add this, and then you'll just add a delay to it so that it ends up syncing up with your audio. But that also increases processing power. So like you kind of have to be careful in situations like that. You're sometimes better off like kind of weighing out your options and deciding whether or not it's really worth it at the end of the day. So that's what you would do. You would add like a render delay in that case. But Voicemeeter is realistically your only option if you wanted to do that. Actually, your other option, if you weren't using a plug and play microphone like a Blue Yeti, right? And you were using an XLR setup, you could get a mixer that has like a compressor built into it, or you can get hardware compressors that would plug into the mixer and would allow you to process your input signal going into OBS. That way, people in Discord would hear your process signal, but also people in OBS on your stream would hear that process signal as well. But that's a much more expensive route to take. You know, like onboard, discrete gear, like a discrete compressor. I don't know if you've seen how much those actually cost, but like a rack mount compressor, for example. Like you're talking like a $350 unit, and this is for like a cheap one. Warm Audio makes one for $600. Here's a cheap one for about $150, but it's probably a little excessive for what you need, and it's actually not that great of a compressor. It's like okay, it doesn't sound amazing, but it does the job, you know. So you're talking about like spending. Yeah, Voicemeeter craps out. Well, you can get the deep bassy sound in OBS. You just won't get it in Voicemeeter, but the trick here, all right? The trick here is get the mic closer. If you want that deep bassy sound, by the way, the capsule on this microphone is down here. You see that when I get super close, to it, you get a lot more bass, right? And when I get further away, there's a lot less bass. Think about mic distancing when you're doing that. Start there, right? Get the mic closer to you, right? I don't know where you have the mic set up normally on your stream. I haven't been in your streams enough to like, I just haven't observed it. You know what I mean? If it's off camera, that tells me a lot. But if you bring the mic closer to you, like let's say you want to set it up like down here, right? That's actually a lot better than having it way back here, right? In front, okay, so that's actually probably about as good as you're going to get, right? If you have mic positioning issues, right? You don't want to be talking like super close into a compressor. You don't want to be talking super close into a condenser microphone because it's if you start getting super loud, you might end up blowing the microphone out. With condenser microphones, you have to worry about that. High SPLs equal damaged microphone. You don't have to worry about it with dynamic microphones, though. They're very rugged. They're very durable. That's one reason why someone might buy a dynamic microphone is so that they can get super loud in the microphone. But the downside with a dynamic microphone is they have to bring it really close to you. Otherwise, if it's super far away, it's not going to pick up quite as well as a condenser microphone. So you can see that there's a trade-off with both of them. So that's one thing you could do. You can bring the mic closer to you and you get more of that bass. Otherwise, you could use an EQ plugin to boost the bass frequencies. So like I did before in here, if we're looking in OBS and I were to go to my filters here and I'll go to my EQ plugin, you would just boost the frequencies on this side and you would just play around with it till you get it the way you sound. And you can see that I barely boosted this. I didn't boost it by much. If you boost it too much, it can sound really overwhelming and overpower everything, and then it'll just sound really unbalanced. So you just want to be kind of subtle with it or play with it and see what kind of results you get. But yes, that's what you would do. So you could either invest in a compressor, which will help boost a compressor or like an EQ rack mount that adjusts the input on an XLR. You could use Voice Meter, which has an EQ built into it. Or you could, if you don't care about Discord you're I typically don't really care about Discord audio. As long as people can hear me, that's all that matters. But like in OBS, that's what matters to me. And I just use an EQ and I just boost the bass frequencies a little bit. That's all I really do. And the compressor kind of helps with that too by just kind of evening out the audio. Just to kind of like illustrate that, like if you hear all my EQ adjustments without the compressor, right? In this case,
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz.
I turn it off.
Here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right and what I need.
It doesn't sound quite as full.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here.
So the EQ, the compressor in some ways can help contribute to that bassy sound by just like squashing everything, pretty much. That's what a compressor is doing, is squashing everything. Let's move on to the next question, shall we? Glad to help, Creepy. Glad to help. All right, so what we got? Let's get this next question. Okay, my question is software a massive factor in the quality of your microphone? What are the differences in software looking at audio options? The short answer is no, but there's a bit of an asterisk next to that. If we're talking about specific filters or plugins, right? In the audio world, we typically call VSTs plugins, which is what these different filters are. That's just what we audio engineers call them. There are different plugins that have different qualities to them, right? Not all EQs are created equal. In audio engineering, sometimes we have multiple different EQs because it seems like these different EQs kind of contribute to the sound differently, right? So if you really wanted to, you could research different plugins, and you can see like I have more than just these plugins. If I were to just click add right now, and if I were to just add VST 2.x, right? I've got all these other different third-party plugins that I could use if I wanted to. So, for example, like I've got like, if I wanted to add a saturation plugin, right? I could add Decapitator to it, which I'll actually do that right here. I'll add Decapitator to this right now in Reaper, so that way you can hear it in real time. So I think it's actually right over here. Decapitator. This is a saturation plugin, right? It just kind of saturates the signal with like sort of, it'll sound like distortion in a way. So I've got this kind of put at the end, but what I want to do is I want to actually add it after my EQ.
Test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my...
And if I really wanted to, I could add this into my OBS.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do...
To kind of make it really extreme, I'll boost the drive up like super high.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some dynamic range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud, so that way you guys can have...
So you can kind of hear it's almost like a distortion in a way, but you can use it in a creative way where it might actually contribute more sonically to it.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz.
Where I could have this set more on the dark side, where it's like more of the low frequencies.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some dynamic range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud, so that way...
The drive's a little bit too high in this, so we're really subtle with it.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right.
Let's turn it off.
What's going on, everyone? John Lazaz here. We're just going to be doing a bit of a test recording so that we can get the audio sounding right. And what I need to do is I need to kind of vary my my volume a little bit so that way we can get some dynamic range. Now I'm going to back up a little bit, get really loud, so that way you guys can have a bit of a louder reference.
But this is where software would make a difference, right? Depending on the actual plugins and VSTs that you use, you're going to get different results. And you have a lot of options because there's so many different free ones out there that you can probably use with OBS. It really depends on whether or not OBS supports them. Just keep in mind that OBS does not support every plugin, right? It just so happens that I got lucky and these particular plugins that I have available to me, I can use in OBS if I want to, but I don't really need to. I don't want to overcomplicate my setup. You know what I mean? So if I was to change anything in the setup and use like other third-party plugins or software, then I would probably like, instead of like adding to the signal chain, I would replace. So like, let's say I got a brand new compressor that I just think sounds awesome, right? For some reason, this compressor just sounds better than the compressor I was using before. I would just straight up replace my original compressor with a new one, and then I would get technically better sound, So it depends. It depends on, I guess it's subjective, You have to think of the context of the sound you're trying to get. Because if you're just adding things willy-nilly expecting to improve the sound, like you have to kind of think of the sound you're trying to achieve first before you do any of that. If you just start adding plugins like just because you see someone else doing it, you might not get the results that you're looking for. So, do we have any more questions, everybody? Like there's really not much else I can say on that topic, right? It's just that when it comes to software, software doesn't matter. Hardware matters more. Hardware, your environment matters, your actual voice and the way it interacts with your hardware. All that stuff matters more than the software you use. The software is more or less like it'll contribute, but it's less important. So if, for example, if you find like a functioning EQ that does the job, then why replace it? Why fix it if it's not broken? But if you find a compressor that for some reason on its own helps you achieve the sound that you want, and you only need to use that compressor, then just use that compressor. Get that compressor. You have a reason to buy that piece of software. I mean, if you want an example of like how much these things sort of cost, like for example, like Waves is a company that makes VST plugins that you can use with OBS. Or like Sound Toys, which is what you saw me using there. Waves Audio. You can buy packs or you can buy individual plugins. It's a lot cheaper to buy packs, but you end up having to spend probably, like you can see, they all vary in price. The SSL 4000 collection, like these are some awesome. They're on sale for $120. I might have to buy that right now. Oh my God. I might have to buy this right now. But like, look, this is normally a $740 product. It's on sale for $129 right now. But these 4 little plugins are emulations of SSL hardware consoles. Okay. Yeah, I know. Why would anyone pay that amount of money for a software plugin? As an audio engineer, these are really, really nice sounding plugins. They emulate actual famous hardware SSL plugins. So hardware, right? They have circuitry. They have circuitry built into them, and it influences the way the sound happens. And that's one of the main reasons why you would go hardware, is because the hardware achieves a certain sound, and the software itself emulates it. So the reason why someone would buy something like this is because they want to emulate that sound that they get from that particular piece of hardware. And sure, it's simplistically, it's just another EQ. But something about this EQ in the hardware form sounds unique to just any other EQ. And that's why someone would buy it. So keep that in mind when you're trying to decide whether or not you need to buy a piece of software. You have to look at how that software is actually affecting the audio, and then ask yourself if that's going to contribute positively to the sound that you're looking for. And then that's kind of how you decide whether or not a piece of software is worth your time. Look at comparison videos, hear them side by side. But anyway, do we have any more questions, everybody? For anyone watching on YouTube, I'm just kind of just checking with the chat, see if anyone has some more questions. No questions? Okay, awesome.